Hello and welcome back to another tutorial of SystemVerilog in 5 minutes. Today it's enumeration, a special number data type. Let's take a look at this code. It has two int, i0 and i1. Then it has an initial block, which will update i0 to 1 and i1 to 0. And it uses display to print both values. Imagine this is a legit piece of code and there is a meeting to discuss about it. You're in the meeting and somebody suggests a change. One says that the color should be green and another says that the mode should be night. And then they turn to you to make the change. You understand everything they said, but when you read the code, you could not map to their suggestion. Well, this is literally one of the leading problems in many code nowadays. Code that does not represent its intention. A better code would have been like this. The two variables are named color and mode. At least now you can map the code to the discussion. But still there is another problem. What is color value 1 and what is mode value 0? One way to resolve the meaning of value is to use parameter to represent the values. In this code, you can easily understand that red is 1 and green is 2, and day is 0 and night is 1. There's still a possible problem here. For example, color equals red is the same as color equals night, which is the same as color equals 1. SystemVerilog introduces a new syntax to resolve all those problems. It is called enumeration or simply enum. In this code, color is an int and can only take on value red and green. Mode is also an int and can only take on value day and night. And in case you cannot recognize this syntax, remember that the first part is a type and the second part is a variable. Let's dig a little deeper into the meaning of the syntax. This is the simplest way to introduce an enum. This is the same as introducing an int variable called color. This is a bad code because RGB are vector names. We should use clearer name for readability. For example, red, green, and blue. Back to the RGB example, this is a fuller form of writing the same code. By default, enum is an int, and by default R is 0, G is 1, and B is 2. If you think you don't need an int for the variable, you can replace it, for example with 2 bits here. If you want the R to be other value, you can override it, for example with 1. G, which is not overridden, will get the next value 2 and B is the next one 3. You can also override it in such a manner where R is default 0 and G is 2. While this is allowable, I would advise you either not to override them or to override them all like this. Now let's take a look at its usage. This is one way of declaring variables. You may think you can do the same with enum, but you cannot. That's because the enum values are being redefined here and that is illegal. The way to overcome this is by using typedef. In this case, the enum is shorthanded to eColor and you can use eColor anywhere. This is a simple example of using enum. You can assign color to the value red. You may think this is the same by assigning color to 0. Well, you are right conceptually, but this is not allowed. Enum can only take on values in its defined, in this case red and green. It cannot take the value 0 or 1. But if for some unavoidable reasons you insist on using the value 0, you can use the system function cast. Cast would execute the assignment if the types are compliant. This is generally not recommended as you can cast an illegal number to the enum. This will cause simulation failure. You can have multiple enum variables, but you cannot mix and match them. For example, color can take on value red, but it cannot take on value day, even though they both are of value 0. As an enum variable, it has built-in functions, unlike a normal number variables. You can access the functions by using dot operator. For example, there is a function called first, which will give you the first value. In this case, it is red. This is the same as assigning red to color directly. There's also a function called next. Color is now red, so the next value would be green. If you call it again, color by now is green, there's no next value. It will loop back to its first one, which is red. Similarly, there is also a function called last, which will give you green in this case. There is also a function called name, which will give you the name of the value. You can print it out in a message. This will print out color equals 1, green. Enumeration is a very useful variable to improve code readability. For example, you can use it in finite state machine to define all the states. Alright, that's all for today. In the next tutorial, we'll talk about string variable.